Well, the approach with the food at this restaurant is to be very diverse. There's so many different things that we go into all our items. Nothing is one noted.
Just never be scared to mix, blend, and put the cultures together, honestly. I would think today, a lot of people infuse a lot of cultures through food, so I wouldn't hesitate on mixing a couple cultures together. So everyone can be, receptive to all of the different recipes and dishes that we have, which makes us unique.
The UN is increasingly irrelevant.
Can we nuance?
This is.
Yeah, when you say this is, what do you mean?
We're all here for the HLPF, so if we thought that the UN was increasingly relevant, we probably wouldn't be here. But at the same time, the conversation that we were having earlier at a side event from UN MGCY was, is the format of the HPL actually delivering what it aims at delivering? I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this dinner in the first place. So, and this is definitely something that I've heard, like on campus, it's something that I've heard people say many times. The thing is, people think like that, and it's really sad, I'd say, because when I think about the UN, I do think about it with a lot of hope. I mean, the intention is extremely noble and it's fundamental like the UN.
I think there are some member states and people who would like the UN to be irrelevant because they feel threatened. But I think it's a little bit of a fallacy to see the UN as some separate, independent organization, because it's not. It is all of us. Multilateralism is very much under threat right now. I mean, I spend time in the Security Council, and the kinds of debates that go on now can be quite shocking. I think there's a connection to the fact that the World War II generation has just about died off, because that is what brought about the UN and what brought about this multilateral, these systems, not just, but also values. And we met at the CIPRI Forum in Stockholm, and I listened to Jan Eliasson, who was the Deputy Secretary General under Ban Ki-moon, and he's the chairman of that forum, and just say, he never thought that he would need to defend these values that we all thought were a given. So, I mean, we live in very dangerous times. So I think, if anything, the UN is more relevant than ever, but also just to remember that, again, UN, it is a reflection of the member states, but then there are all the agencies, funds, and programs of the UN as well. That's also what the UN is.
I think that some of the structures in place are needed, and the manifestations of those structures is what many people interact with. So like the Security Council, right? Security Council is not representative of the world. It can be very hard for civil society to engage with the UN at times. It's easier in Geneva than it is here, but my organization has a monthly dialogue that we do that tries to bring together civil society members with rotating presidents of the council, just to try to address the divide a little bit. So I feel like the UN is probably increasingly important because there's such system-wide failure across the board. But I think what is required is like a broadening of the structures that allow for inclusion, in a way incentivizes people to engage. And like the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, I think, has done kind of an incredible job at this, right? This 2250 resolution passed in 2015, the first UN resolution of its kind, basically reframing young people not as like problems, but opportunities and human rights holders. The importance of young people as peacebuilders, as activists, as political agents of change. If even among like the champion countries, you have to like continue to to remind and to highlight and to demonstrate and showcase the evidence base. Like, there is the evidence. What you were mentioning, what you mentioned before, is that so much of conflict comes from like governance failures. We're all obviously big proponents of SDG 16 and the catalytic value and the transformative value it can have. But you've got to get everybody involved. How do we make this agenda matter? Instead of like, you know, communities coming to us, like going to the communities themselves. I think the interest and the will is there. I think some of the structures provide like a real hindrance to forward movement, but I think that the UN is like, it's critical. Like it's just like simply critical. And I think it's a bit privileged to say that it's not. It's not that it doesn't need to do its work a whole lot better and that there aren't like, you know, issues around SEA.
But what do you mean when you say it? Are you talking about the UN Secretariat? Or you mentioned SEA, an issue that I had to deal with a lot.
Yeah.
But those are member states. That's not the UN. Those are, I mean, we had way too many sexual exploitation and abuse cases in CAR. But the investigation and prosecution of those cases rests with member states. Yeah. And when people would come and say, but you're not doing anything, but then we would say, but well, we've taken it to the member state. Now they have to act on it. Yeah. And I think the conversations happen in New York, but the action happens on the ground. Mm-hmm. And the sustaining peace resolutions, all of this, it's, yes, the UN can be a convener, a coordinator, can be catalytic, but member states have to do their part. And then you have all the other donors, multilateral, bilateral, who are also all working in this space. So I guess, I don't know, I think I'm just more of a plea of let's not separate out the UN and sort of as if it's this organization that has all this power. Yeah.
But I feel the approach needs to be changed.
I think that again depends on the country, because some countries have actually used this voluntary national review process in a much more inclusive way. But so can the UN representative go to the Indian government and say you have to be more inclusive? I mean, I think those conversations do happen, and there's been the whole reform of the development system, and with resident coordinators who really are meant to be like the representative of the Secretary General in a country. And even initially, the idea was that person should have more of a political role as well. But there again, there were certain member states who just pushed back on that and said, no, 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 no. These resident coordinators are not political actors.